mainly there's, as far as cognitive processing, there's mainly three areas of processing: phonological, orthographic, and morphological. And so it gives you a little more, it's more specific than, for example, we used to say, or no, you still say in IEPs a lot of, there's visual and auditory. Well, the orthographic would be more the visual processing, and the phonological would be more the auditory processing, I guess. And that's the way at least I label it. And they're unique components in themselves, different from, like orthographic is different from visual processing, or it's a great way to look at it because it helps you decide what interventions the child will need. If they need, for example, they'll score low in phonological, which is the key, which is known to be the key component to reading problems these days, or dyslexia is pretty much defined today as a phonological processing problem. But Berninger goes on to say that it's more than that. It's maybe it's working memory and executive functions actually, and how those are integrated together. For example, the print, the orthographic part, and phonological part, how the brain can integrate them together is part of the problem. The linguistic parts are just incredible, how concise it is, how she was able to break it down. There's basically, like for example, one part in a teacher's guide, there's a real thin booklet, there's just 3 pages that basically you could sum up pretty much the whole English language, the basic parts of it, by using Fry's 1,000 words, for example. Shows you, as a school psych, if you wanted a quick way to review and understand the phonetic structure of the English language, it's a very quick way to learn it without having to take a whole class or go to college back to get your master's. It also shows you, I think it's very helpful to understand that the way she has it broken down in there is very helpful to help you assess the child very quickly, to see what areas of language they're missing. For example, the subword, like you got subwords and you have like, well, within the subword you have the single letters and you have multiple letter units. For example, just single letter units would be just like the vowels A, E, I, O, U that we learn. And then there's multi-letter units like the vowel teams, you would call it, or it might be called diphthongs or digraphs. And it's very important to learn because there's so many children with Spanish in our state, for example, and I think that concept is missed a lot in that jump to English, that there's multi-letter units in English, and that's really emphasized in the Pall, that understanding, and it's very important that kids are taught that early on, because then they make the wiring. You want to make that connection, with these sounds in the spelling units. Yeah, and the orthographic part it's basically how the brain stores mental representation or visual representations of the letters, again at the different levels, the subword, which is single letters and letter clusters, and the word levels. You got subword, the word, and the text level. Orthographic processing is that visual part, how the brain will store the visual part. It's separate really from visual processing. Just because a child may have visual processing weakness, say on the WISC performance, it doesn't really say they have an orthographic problem. It doesn't mean they have a reading problem. Like they used to say back in, say, in the 80s or so. It's really the brain tends to develop its own, what they call a lexicon in linguistics, kind of like a library of letters and subword components, and you can tease that out with the Pall. It's one of the only tests that I've seen that actually directly tests orthographic processing. I don't really know of any other test. There are some you can get like in articles and books and stuff, but pretty much the only published test I know. One of the key components is working memory and executive functions. That's key to understanding a learning disabled kid, a reading disability or dyslexic, because when you give the lessons, say in a classroom, they have a difficult time putting the skills together. For example, you teach phonemic awareness one day and then do fluency another day, they don't make that connection. The brain doesn't, because it forgets. And in these lessons you're doing, everything is done in all levels of language at the same time. So when you group your students, for example, you want to get kids, say, with phonemic awareness problems, the ultimate goal is reading comprehension. So you would do phonemic awareness in that lesson, and you'd have orthographic, and you would do some word work, and then you would have some comprehension. And within that hour lesson, the whole 1 hour, close in time. And you get very, very quick results if you really do that, consistently, just several times a week. And most of the lessons are around no more than 24 lessons that seem to be adequate to make those connections. Just dive in and start doing it, and try to get involved in some lessons, do some of them with the kids. And it's really not that difficult, but it's really hard to get it if you don't do it. Try to at least give the basic tests, the phonemic awareness test, get a good phonemic awareness test. There's others, the CTOP and them are very great tests. You gotta give the CTOP, elision a lot. But the Pall, I really love the phonemic awareness on the Pall though, because it's timed. Give that a lot so you could see the problems. You need to see firsthand children having trouble with phonemic awareness, for example. It's as clear as day sometimes, these problems. You want to always try to not stick on a concept. For example, you're getting a kid to decode a word. You don't want to sit there like, come on, Johnny, I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Spend 5-10 minutes on one word, or even 2 minutes. You want to give them a few seconds, and then you just may model it for them. For example, you can just give the talking letter card. See, here's the vowel. It's a closed syllable, so it says eh, so bed. Move on. Keep it moving, and because children will really burn out quickly. Learning disabled kids will lock up very easily. You got to keep it moving, keep it interesting, and they'll also lose the comprehension of the text. And that goes for a lot of programs. They'll teach you that. A good reading clinician will understand that concept anyway. But it's key, and the Pall takes it farther because you're also working on the cognitive processes and directly. These are reproducibles in the original Pall handwriting. And that was actually probably one of the negative things, I guess, was there's a gazillion copies of this you had to do for a summer school program. But in the new Pall too, it's going to have reproduce on a computer, which will be much easier to reproduce, much more convenient and inexpensive. That's one of the great things about this program, is it's so inexpensive to do, and you're using a lot of the resources that are already in the school. And so, there's lots of money to be saved, especially schools with lower budgets, but you want the more bang for your buck. I think this program, is it. You get very quick results.